Hello, I've been looking for a bright ultra-wide-angle lens for Micro Four Thirds for quite some time now. I've been using the Samyang 12mm f2 and the Laowa 7.5mm f2 so far, but I wanted something even brighter. When I discovered the Tokino 14-20 f2 lens that is made for APS-C DSLRs, I thought I tried to combine it with a speed booster so it becomes a 10-15 f1.4 lens. This video will be a short review of this lens in combination with the focal reducer, and I will show you how it performs for astrophotography and low-light video. I've bought the Tokina for the Nikon F mount because I already had an adapter and a speed booster from Zhongyi for the Nikon F mount. But before I show you the sample shots, let's first take a look at the lens itself. The Tokina is quite big and heavy compared to my other lenses I've used before, and combined with the focal reducer, it's comparable in size to the Panaleica 10-25 f1.7 lens, but it is way heavier. Typically for Tokina, the build quality is very good and the lens feels really solid. The zooming is very smooth, which is also thanks to the small zoom range the lens has. The focusing ring turns nicely and has the clutch mechanism that lets you change from autofocus to manual focus. I can't use the autofocus with the Zhongyi focal reducer, but you can use the clutch mechanism to lock your focus. You can set your focus to infinity in manual focus and then switch back to autofocus. And since I have no autofocus, the lens stays exactly at this focus point. This is useful, for instance, for astrophotography, as you can pre-focus your lens to infinity in daylight, switch to AF, and when you arrive at your location at night, your focus is already set and it can't be changed accidentally. Now let's take a look at some sample images. Before I tested the Tokina in low light and at night, I wanted to see how the lens performs in general in terms of sharpness, and I was also comparing it to my other lenses I've used so far, the Laowa 7.5 and the Samyang 12mm. The Tokino 14-20 does pretty good, considering it's a zoom lens competing against prime lenses. It is a bit sharper than the Laowa in the center and slightly worse at the sides of the image. The Samyang 12mm f2 is a bit better in the center, and it is also sharper at the sides of the image. What I noticed during these tests is that the images are a bit soft on one side, in this instance on the left side. So my copy of this lens is probably slightly decentered. As you can see, the combination of the Tokina and the focal reducer produces some vignetting. This gets even worse when stopping down the lens. This is likely caused by the small lens element of the Zhongyi focal reducer and should be no problem if you are using a focal reducer with bigger elements like the Viltrox or the Metabones. With this in mind, I also did some tests in situations with less light. First, we have some video samples from inside a church. Here I could take full advantage of the bright aperture f1.4 and film at base ISO, which is ISO 400 for HLG on the Panasonic Lumix G9. A bit more challenging was filming outdoors during blue hour, where I started with ISO 800 and later had to raise the ISO up to 1600 or even 3200. Still, you get a lot of light with an f1.4 aperture, and with a bit of tweaking in post, the images look good. Chromatic aberrations are quite good controlled on this lens. Of course, you can see some chromatic aberrations at bright light sources, but I have seen far worse with other lenses I tested before. I only had exactly one opportunity to shoot the Milky Way this year so far, and here I took some comparison shots with the Tokina and with the Samyang 12mm and the Laowa 7.5mm lenses. Here you can see the differences in field of view and of course also the differences in image quality and overall light gathering. I chose these settings to get roughly the same exposure levels with each lens. The focus on the Tokina in this example was slightly off, so this time the right side of the image is a bit unsharp. But in general, the Tokina produces quite sharp astrophotography images. You can see this better in this example, where the focus was set correctly, but apparently no Milky Way was visible. There is a bit of coma in the corners, but nothing to really worry about. So to sum this up, the Tokina 14-20 f2 can be a good option if you need a fast ultra-wide-angle lens with some zoom range, although the zoom range is a bit limited. The lens is quite heavy and big compared to native Micro Four Thirds lenses, but if you really need this lens, then this could be worth it. And this ends my short review of the Tokina 14-20 f2 in combination with a focal reducer. If this was useful for you and if you liked this video, then please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, then please consider subscribing to my channel, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!